जीतेगा, जीतेगा भाई जीतेगा। विकास ही हमारा मंत्र है, विकास के लिए आगे बढ़ना है, देश को विकास की नई ऊंचाइयों पर ले जाना है।
मोदी, 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 मोदी। राहुल गांधी अब इटली जाने वाले हैं, वो कल परसों में इटली चले जाएंगे।
हिंदुस्तान कांग्रेस मुक्त बनने जा रहा है।
भारतीय जनता पार्टी जिंदाबाद, जिंदाबाद।
आगे राजस्थान, मध्य प्रदेश और मिजोरम में भी हम हमारी सरकार बनाएंगे।
गुजरात में 22 साल के बाद फिर से चुनाव जीतना, ये अपने आप में एक रिकॉर्ड है।
आज बीच में मैं टेलीविजन देख रहा था तो थोड़ा सा ट्रेंड ऐसा आया था कि जहां कांग्रेस थोड़ा सा आगे हो गई थी, ये सारे चैनल्स ने मिलके जो है कांग्रेस को एक मौका दिया था परसों जो पटाखे बचे हुए थे उनको चलाने का। तो वो पटाखे उनके चल चुके हैं और वो सारे फुस निकले।
A very good evening. It's Modi magic all the way. That's the big message coming out of election results 2017. The BJP will form governments in Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh, though the numbers in Gujarat are perhaps not as big as they expected and not as many seats as last time. It's been an action-packed day. Over the next 30 minutes, we are going to give you all the news of the day. So let's begin with the headlines.
इन सभी चुनाव नतीजों ने एक बात सिद्ध कर दी है कि देश रिफॉर्म के लिए तैयार है।
So Narendra Modi says the election results are a vindication of BJP's development politics. Amit Shah says it's a victory of development over dynasty. Congress improves its tally in Gujarat but slumps in Himachal. Rahul Gandhi says the Congress fought anger with dignity. Markets' fortunes swing with that of the BJP's. Nifty closes 50 points higher after sliding as much as 260 points in early trade. And the government will spend an additional 66,000 crore rupees in the current financial year. Net cash outgo will be 33,400 crore rupees. Now, the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party has retained power in Gujarat for the 6th term. The party has won 99 seats above the majority mark of 92, but the performance was well below that of the exit polls that were predicted for the party. The vote share of the BJP also slumped from the 2014 Lok Sabha elections and came in at 49.1%, while the Congress improved its performance from 2014 polls and 2012 polls. In terms of both the vote share and seat share, the Congress improved its seats tally. Why don't we show you those numbers instead of just talking about them? Well, 182 seats in all, BJP at 99. Remember that they hoped for 150 and they've not done as well as they did in 2012. They went into this election with 121 seats. The Congress, meanwhile, managed to increase its seat number by 20 seats in terms of vote share, though the BJP has kept up its performance, even bettering its numbers from last time with 50% vote share. The Congress at 42, they were 39% in 2012. Let's just take a quick look at Himachal before we move ahead. In Himachal Pradesh, the BJP has had a resounding victory. That's how I would describe it. 6 out of 68 total seats, 44 have gone to the BJP, 21 to the Congress, and they've dominated that election. That's a proper two-third majority that the BJP can really celebrate. Although the chief ministerial candidate from the BJP, Prem Kumar Dhumal, lost in his seat of Sujanpur. Now, Prime Minister Modi has hailed the election results as an extraordinary victory for the government's developmental politics. He also said that India is ready to reform, transform and perform.
इन सभी चुनाव नतीजों ने एक बात सिद्ध कर दी है कि देश रिफॉर्म के लिए तैयार है, परफॉर्म करने वाली हर बात को पॉजिटिव देख रहा है और ट्रांसफॉर्म होने के संबंध में भरपूर विश्वास रखती है। ये चुनाव लगातार दिखा रहे हैं। 2014 मई में लोकसभा के चुनाव के बाद इस देश में विकास का एक माहौल बना है। एक ऐसी सरकार है जिसमें निर्णय लेने की ताकत है। एक ऐसी सरकार है जिसकी नीयत में कोई खोट नहीं है। एक ऐसी सरकार है जिसकी नीतियां साफ सुथरा है। एक ऐसी सरकार है जो कलेक्टिव लीडरशिप को लेकर के चलती है।
Well, Congress President Rahul Gandhi conceded defeat on Twitter. Gandhi said that the party accepted the verdict of the people and he congratulated the new governments in both states. Gandhi also thanked the people of Gujarat and Himachal Pradesh and, of course, Congress workers as well. He said that the party's greatest strength was its decency and courage. And now let's take a look at the numbers in a little more detail. Hilal Ahmed is with us, Associate Professor at CSDS. And Hilal, we've been looking at all of these numbers through the day. I want to go back to the constituency maps and what this election was really about. Let's pull up the spectrum and compare Gujarat in 2012 with Gujarat in 2017. And what strikes you is how basically the votes which the Congress had in 2012 have shifted in some parts, in the northern parts of Gujarat to the BJP, but it's Saurashtra where the Congress has made huge inroads. What's the significance of this?
Tamanna, if you look at the Saurashtra region, which is there, it is clearly blue. It says that the Patidar agitation, which was going on for a long time, certainly translated into votes for the Congress. So that is the first important aspect which I would like to underline, that there was a social movement sort of an environment in which people like Hardik Patel certainly worked very hard, and Congress was the option which was available to them, and they went for because in any case we have to oppose BJP. So what is the option in case of Gujarat? You have to go towards Congress, which they eventually did. So that's the atmosphere in which Congress actually gained just because there was an environment of a movement kind against the BJP. But at the same time, if you closely look at the vote share, the transferability in urban centers for the BJP was much higher. Yes. That says that actually, despite resentment, people voted for the BJP, meaning that the institutional mechanism of the party worked very well. And despite resentment, they tried to attract the voter, not merely the committed voter, but also the fluctuating voter, and force them somehow to vote for the candidate which they put out.
Well, let's also take a look at some of those key seats. And you were talking about Hardik, Alpesh and Jignesh and their effects and how they fared in this election. And Alpesh Thakur, Jignesh Mewani all did very well on their seats. But meanwhile, top Congress leaders like Arjun Modwadia, he lost from his seat. You had other big leaders, Shakti Singh Gohil, etc., who did not do well on their seats. So there may be some resonance of the point you were making, that this was basically a movement of these young leaders and the Congress was not able to actually do much about it.
As I said in the morning session as well, that you need some kind of an alternative political narrative. If you closely look at what Narendra Modi just said, he said that this is the government which can take decisions, and this is the government which actually has got some kind of a courage to do things. Now, if that is the case, then if we put that decisiveness of leadership of Modi in the context of Gujarat, you either have to do the personality game, which eventually Congress did, or you have to produce some kind of a issue-based politics. Unfortunately, Congress did not go for the issue-based politics despite several sort of a rhetoric. And they had a great opportunity, because all these three people, or these three young leaders, were producing some kind of alternative arguments to the so-called debate on development, but somehow both BJP and Congress missed that point.
You know, we'll come to more details on this, but I want to quickly take you through how markets reacted today as well to the entire election process. And it was very interesting because this morning there was a bit of a scare for markets when they weren't quite sure where this election results would go. When the initial numbers came in, it was seeming like a neck-to-neck fight for quite some time, and Indian equity markets sort of resonated and reflected that topsy-turvy movement, though they did recover finally. In fact, my colleague Neeraj Shah has this report on the market action through the day.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting day of trade simply because we started off way lower, then recovered, and you can argue that a 0.5% off from the highs of the day is disappointing. But he ended in the green for a second day on a trot post in the same vein post Friday. So volatile day of trade, 0.5% apiece for the large caps, and the small cap index barely holding on to its gains. Mid caps were okay, Nifty Bank was okay, but India VIX, that was the key thing. It had a substantial drop, almost a 30% drop from the highs to the levels that it is trading at. So volatility itself was very, very volatile. Top contributors, I think, from a large cap perspective remain ICICI Bank and State Bank of India. These two really performed well. There were other key movers in the session today as well, and will come up on your screen. The likes of Adani Port, which rallied substantially from the lows of the day. Reliance, which was down about 4%, ending the day in the green. So there are a couple of stocks which did fairly well for themselves in the session. The top losers from way of contribution, Infosys and ITC, not big percentage cuts, but amongst the top contributors to the downside today. The broader end of the spectrum saw PSU banks as a pack do really well. PNB, Canara Bank, a clutch of other mid-sized names did reasonably okay. New highs for stocks like Dixon Technologies on the back of this duty raises, as well as Symphony, which ended up about 6% at 1751, clocking in new highs for itself. There was some gains for SQS India on the basis of this global takeover that its parent is getting. So there were some individual newsmakers as well. By and large, though, it was all about what the markets did. And all about what the election verdict did to the headline levels of the headline indices, which is something that most people were watching out for. Let's wait and watch if tomorrow can be a continuation of this up move that we've started seeing for the last couple of sessions.
Now, meanwhile, foreign investors did factor in a BJP win. That's the word coming in from Bill Donato of HSBC Global Asset Management. In fact, through the day, we connected with the big voices in the markets to get their view on what kind of impact of the result is likely.
With the sort of BJP victory last week, I think investors have sort of moved on. There's not a huge deal of concern about it, I would say, at this point. I think if there was a surprise upset, different to what the exit polls were showing at the end of last week, I think there might be some temporary impact on the market. And one of the features of the rally that we've seen, this now quite long-lasting rally, has been that it's been much more domestically driven than driven by inflows from foreigners.
Now, R. Shankar, Head of Institutional Equities, Prabhudas Leeladhar, joins us for his perspective of how the markets will continue to see this. Thank you so much for speaking with us, Mr. Shankar. Few nerves this morning. Things did settle down. But, you know, the fact that the BJP did not quite make it past 100 in the Gujarat elections, is that a factor?
I don't think it is a great factor, but it always will remain that if you were expecting around 125 or anything upwards of 110, and probably if you have come out with a number at less than 100, then it's for you to sit and ponder over where you have gone wrong in your estimates and what does it mean in the broader context of all over. But the one point which we need to bear in mind is Gujarat is probably the first election where you have actually seen BJP in the ruling side going for an election. In other states, BJP was not in a ruling party wherever elections were held earlier. So Gujarat had much more of an impact on the overall outcome of the elections. So to my mind, and if you go back, and if you keep hearing Prime Minister what he was mentioning, The plank was more on development and decision making, and so to go across and see probably what needs to how the entire things will take shape for the next 1.5 years, before they face the electorate yet again in 2019 is going to be the big question.
How would you look at the markets over the next few months now that this election is behind us? What are the big factors that the markets are looking to?
So from my personal point of view, see, the one big positive has been Indian economy still will continue to grow at around anything between 6 to 6.5%. So our estimate is that you had a 5.7% growth in Q1, 6.3% in Q2, and Q3 we expect it to be relatively better, and Q4 to be probably the best quarter. So you may actually see an overall growth for FY18 anything in the range of 6.3 to 6.5% plus. That's number one. Number two, if you look at a year-on-year increase, last year in Q3 you had the impact of demonetization. So today in Q3 of FY18 you don't have it, and Q4 of FY17 also had the effects of demonetization following it. So Q4 of FY18 doesn't have it. So it has to be a better quarter for year-on-year basis on both Q3 as well as Q4. That's the first point. Second, post demonetization, we have actually seen the equity flows to mutual funds increasing quite dramatically, and that has only gained strength and it has not seen any letdown. So traditionally what we see is that when the market gets corrected, you probably see the money flow into the mutual funds actually reduce. If it doesn't reduce, and if this continues to, the momentum of flow continues to, especially from SIPs and the likes of it, continue to remain strong, then you probably have a stronger demand environment coming from the domestic mutual fund side itself. Now, next year, from a global perspective, though we start to see an increase in interest rates and probably liquidity may get somewhat lower, if you continue to see FI inflows also coming in, you've got a great story still awaiting. But the problem will remain, from my personal view, that a large amount of supply of paper, QIPs, IPOs, etc., would cap this market gain. So FY19 market gains probably is unlikely to be much lower than what you saw in FY18. It will be more of a consolidation. That's the thought process.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us on Bloomberg Quint this evening and telling us how markets are responding to this mega election. Now, who are the real winners and losers of election 2017, and how will today's results impact the national elections in 2019? Well, Raghav Bell brings us his 5 key takeaways from Gujarat Assembly polls 2017.
So this is a 6 crore question. Who won the Gujarat elections? Well, electorally, clearly the BJP will form the government. But was the elections a psychological upper for the Congress? Now, I've called the outcome quizzically inscrutable in my piece. But there comes a moment in politics when it is the resurrection moment. We saw that with Mrs. Indira Gandhi in 1978. We saw that with VP Singh in Allahabad. These elections turned the politics of the country. We saw that this year in the UK when the Labour Party came out of nowhere to reassert and become a strong opposition to the Conservatives. I suspect something similar has happened in the Gujarat Assembly polls of 2017. Here's my first take on the Gujarat elections. Rahul Gandhi actually took on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is a colossus in Gujarat. He is an iconic leader. He's a Gujarati. He took him on in the lion's den. He could have stayed away. But fortune often does favor the brave, and by taking him on, by actually getting him to reduce his awesome majority that he got in 2014. Remember, he got nearly 60% of the vote and he got nearly 160 assembly seats. Against that, the vote has fallen to about 49, so he's lost about 10 to 11 percentage points of the vote, and he's lost almost 60 to 70 assembly constituencies. So Rahul Gandhi had the gumption to go into the lion's den and to challenge him, and in this instance has come away with what I would call is a reasonably rejuvenating outcome for him and his party. My second take of the elections is that when BJP won that spectacular UP election about 8 or 9 months back, people thought that that was the trend. People said that the way the BJP is going up, it's game, set and match in 2019, it's all over. But I even remember at that point in time telling my editors that I don't think the UP elections were a trend. I thought they were a peak. And I think the Gujarat elections sort of proved that point, that up until then, the BJP had been fighting in states where the BJP was the underdog, and it had the terrific tail whirlwind of the Modi win in 2014 to get it across. And it did that in state after state, in Maharashtra, Haryana, UP, Uttarakhand. It did that. But with UP, that run had come to an end. It is now going to be fighting in states where it suffers from a double incumbency disadvantage. And that really is my third take from the Gujarat Assembly elections, that now the BJP will suffer a double incumbency disadvantage. And therefore, look at the trend of some of the polls. And I'm going to mix up local student elections, municipalities, panchayats, by-elections. Look at Punjab, look at Goa, look at Chitrakoot, look at the Dusu elections in Delhi, look at the UP local polls, which finished just a few weeks back. In all of them, the BJP has lost significant vote share and a number of seats. What that shows is that as the double incumbency disadvantage sets in, the Congress could move in for the kill. It could move in for the kill in some of the key elections coming up. For instance, there are by-elections coming up in Phulpur, Gorakhpur, Ajmer, Alwar, in Bihar. In all of that, the opposition could have an upper hand. Also remember that there are big assembly elections coming up in Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. In all of them, the BJP suffers a double incumbency disadvantage. And remember now, with the Congress's seen resurrection in the Gujarat Assembly elections, it possibly will be able to garner more funds and resources from friends and well-wishers and donors. So therefore, let's get ready for a strong political battle, a string of them in 2018. My fourth takeaway from today's Gujarat elections is that demonetization and GST, which the BJP and Prime Minister Modi in particular had been spinning as an extremely successful political move, I think that's beginning to bite now. Remember, when demonetization happened over a year back, people suffered, but people suffered willingly because they thought that Prime Minister Modi was doing something which was very noble. He had brought the rich to their knees. It was a terrific anti-dishonest move, and people supported it completely. But when that got combined with the problems that have been there in the GST rollout, actually it's a botch up, the GST rollout. When you put the two together, it's really beginning to bite, and that reflects in the vote in Gujarat. Remember, in Gujarat, in places like Surat, where there was a lot of dissatisfaction, Prime Minister Modi could pull in his Gujarati credentials and still neutralize a lot of that anger. But some of that strategy is unlikely to work in the rest of the country. My fifth takeaway is quite straightforward, actually, that now with the Congress having resurrected itself quite a bit in Gujarat, it will necessarily become the fulcrum of opposition unity. Rahul Gandhi, who until now perhaps a lot of senior politicians in the opposition were not taking as seriously as they would take his mother, will now be forced to take him that seriously, will be forced to listen to him as the fulcrum of opposition unity. And opposition unity is an imperative if the opposition wants to make a mark in the 2019 poll. So therefore, a broad alliance between the Congress, TMC, DMK, BSP, SP is something that is imperative. And finally, although I thought I would give 5 takeaways, I'll give a 6th one. This is unsolicited for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister must remember that the reason he won such a spectacular victory in 2014 was because he pivoted to the centre. He got about 5 percentage points of the core Congress vote, which moved to him. Remember, in about 15 years, from 1999 onwards to 2014, roughly 50% of the vote went to the BJP and Congress together, and an average of 25% apiece to them if we average out over the polls. But in 2014, Prime Minister Modi got 30% plus and the Congress got 20% minus. So 5 percentage points of the Congress, the moderate Congress vote had moved to Prime Minister Modi. Now, if he does not repivot to the centre, if he continues to indulge the right fringe, then I'm afraid he is in danger of losing a bit of that 5 percentage points of the vote. And if it does indeed become 25% apiece in 2019, then the race is wide open.
Well, some more analysis coming up on BloombergQuint.com. Right up ahead, our mega election show. We've spoken to the top pollsters, top editorial minds, as well as the top spokespersons from the BJP and the Congress. That show coming right up.
सर ये नया प्रोजेक्ट ना